Hello, word nerds. We are here tonight with Superhero Sunday, so we were kind of looking for a topic, and I love superheroes, so I'm dragging you all into one of my obsessions. I think if you've been around for a while, you know I love superheroes. Um, but yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. And as always, feel free to leave questions, comments in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. If you have something you want us to talk about, let us know and we'll try and talk about it. I wanted to start by asking everyone who their favorite superhero characters are. So, Kelly, you're in my first corner spot.
So I've never been a big comics reader. For me, the bulk of my superhero love is the MCU. In which case, I will give it to Scarlet Witch. And just, does Yelena have a superhero name? I don't think so.
She does, and I can't remember it right now. So.
Her. And Florence Pugh.
Yes.
She's all the hero I'll ever need.
Excellent. Erin just got here, so I'll give her a second. But Emma, how about you?
I like very classic, but I do really like Spider-Man. I've liked every adaptation we've gotten of it in my lifetime, which I feel like says something. They've all been so good. So really like Spider-Man. I think within kind of the original MCU, I did always really like Iron Man a lot, which I think a lot is due to Robert Downey Jr. just portrays the character really well. So yeah, those are some of the top ones for me.
Do you have a favorite Spider-Man adaptation version?
And I feel like that's a controversial question, but let's go there.
Yeah, and I feel like each one brings something different, which is part of why it's there have been a bunch, but it still doesn't feel like there have been too many. Almost too many, but not quite too many.
I feel like Into the Spider-Verse kind of made it canon that there can never be too many. We just
right. I do love Into the Spider-Verse a lot. I feel like it was it's very unique compared to all of the others. So I love it for that. But I really love Tom Holland. I feel like he's a really good Peter Parker all around.
For me, Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man was the first superhero love of this is great.
Yeah, so. I was sad that we didn't get a third one with Andrew Garfield. Mm-hmm.
I think Tobey Maguire was a fantastic Spider-Man, working with one of the not worst scripts ever written. That's a low bar to set, but I think that looking back, I'm I think that's 90% of what was not great about those movies. Is I watched part of one recently. I'm just the lines they are making him say. He's doing his darndest, but
yeah, I'll admit that was my first intro to superhero movies. Was the Tobey Maguire films, and I was I'll pass. And then it wasn't until I was in college and I had some friends who were really big superhero fans that I started watching the Marvel movies, and then I was oh, okay, I like this.
I feel like Tobey Maguire captured the awkward dorkiness of Spider-Man really well, of Peter Parker really well, and Andrew Garfield captured intelligent nerd aspect of Peter Parker really well, and Tom Holland's kind of done a good job of bringing both of those things together.
Yeah, that's my one complaint about Andrew Garfield, because I also love those ones, but he maybe seems just a little too cool and hot to be Peter Parker. Okay, Leah.
Oh gosh, I
warned you I was asking this.
I know you did, and I keep changing my mind. But when Kelly said Scarlet Witch, I was yes, that's probably the one I've enjoyed the most recently. Just because I love the way her story was told through WandaVision. I think it was one of my favorite superhero stories, just because it came at it from such a different angle than a lot of them do.
I did love WandaVision. I like her as a character. She's a fascinating character.
Mm-hmm.
Last but not least, Erin.
I'm going to come off like I'm trying to be edgy because she's not technically a superhero, but I really like Catwoman. Every version of her. And the more unhinged, the better. So she's my favorite.
Why is she not a superhero?
Well, she's a villain, right? Technically,
helps
I
them.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Depends a lot on the writer.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, she's kind of morally gray sometimes. Again, why I like her the best.
She's hot and morally gray.
Right?
What is there not to love?
Exactly.
Cool. I guess I'll kind of round out. From the Marvel end, really, really love Miss Marvel. The Kamala Khan Miss Marvel. I think she's so cute. I also really like Spider-Man. For me, she like in the comics now, Spider-Man's like an adult and he's still adorable, but like I really love like the teenageriness of that character, and she very much has like the things I like about Spider-Man. She's kind of what that is in the comics right now. A couple people have mentioned X-Men in the comics. I do really like the X-Men. I'm also on the DC end. I'm not like a big Batman person per se, but I love like all his supporting characters. So I love Nightwing. I love Batgirl. All the Robins are great. So yeah. Like I said, let us know in the comments if you have thoughts, feelings. We want to hear them, questions. And Griswold, favorite superhero Storm from the X-Men because of the 90s animated series. Yes. And then another Spider-Man. I like that we're getting some nods to like the 90s cartoons here, which maybe kind of leads into my similar follow-up question is, apart from characters, like, do you have specific media that you have really enjoyed? So specific movies, specific shows, comics, books, other formats that superheroes can take. I know Leah was saying beforehand, she like had a hard time remembering what the most recent.
Yeah.
I feel like
Because for a while it was superhero heavy. A lot.
Yeah.
Umbrella Academy has been one of the more recent, like, not comic, well, yes, but like, not like Marvel, DC.
Superheroes, yeah.
I liked the Watchmen series on HBO too. Really good.
I like TV quite often. When like Jessica Jones I followed really closely. I really liked that one. Umbrella Academy as well. I really liked that one. Stuff that feels like, yeah, like a little bit different than the big blockbuster movies. I think I tend to like lean towards.
And like
Think
any other time, I would, like a year ago even, I would hardcore MCU. Like that was one of my special interests, all about it. I have missed the last several things and would love to feel that way again. But I was like deeply invested for the Infinity Saga. So
yeah, same. I, unlike people in the comments, I didn't really ever watch any of the 90s cartoons. Like I guess superheroes just like weren't a thing in my household growing up. I don't know why. But so for me, I think probably the first superhero related thing I can remember watching and like getting really into was Smallville. Like that was like my
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I kind of recently, like last year, was like really in the mood for some like early 2000s TV for like just nostalgia. And I'd never really like I'd seen a couple episodes of Smallville, but I never watched it. And I kind of got sidetracked because there's a whole lot of Smallville, but I watched like a season and a half, I think, and I'm like, yes.
Yeah,
It's
I
like-
definitely didn't watch all of it. But
Yeah,
I remember when it first came out, watching like the first like few seasons.
Definitely did it in a lot of ways. Really fantastic writing in a lot of ways. It just also was like that's the first thing I've watched in a long time that's had like the long form. Like, you know, this is like 20 episode seasons, multiple seasons of 40 minutes of TV. And I miss that.
I really liked the first couple of seasons where they were still kind of doing like, this is the individual villain and he's fighting this one guy, and then we go on to the next one and this is the new villain. And like obviously like a lot of TV shows that eventually you get into like a long running story across seasons, but like I really enjoyed the first few seasons that were just like, yeah, more like standalone on their own for each episode.
Yeah. And I also feel like it was really cool, like the introducing Lex Luthor as like a friend who you know is going to become a villain later on, because that was before we were just like inundated with like villain origin stories, you know, friends to enemies type stuff. It was an early version of that, and I thought it was really cool.
Others stand out, like, ooh, I really liked this one particular show, movie, whatever.
When I first saw Black Panther, I was blown away with just like all of the choices that they made with the actors and like the cinematography, and it just like they really brought Wakanda to life. And I just loved like Killmonger as the villain, who is also kind of sympathetic in what he's doing, and just like it was for me one of my favorite ones ever.
That was a solid movie, just all around. Like, yeah, I don't know. It came out at a time where I was like kind of fatigued with superhero movies, and I was like, okay, well, everyone's talking about this, I'm gonna go see it. And I was kind of expecting it to be, you know, like another superhero movie, but I don't know, it felt just really well done, which was nice.
Yeah, Killmonger is still one of my like top MCU villains until they decided to make Wanda a villain, and now she's I'm on her side always. I'm down a bit of a different path. Big Hero 6. Always going to be there for it.
Yeah, that's such a good one.
That deserves a rewatch. I haven't seen it since I first watched it.
So good.
I haven't seen it in a long time. I did watch when it came out, the Baymax little mini. So it's on Disney. They're so precious, and I love them.
I so rarely watch those like mini things that I did watch for.
Yeah, I don't know what it was about that one in particular that maybe because people were mad about it on Facebook. I was like, I'm gonna support this, but it was very wholesome and cute.
Why were people mad about it?
People like to be mad about things.
Well, Baymax helps a young girl who has gotten her first period.
That's why they were.
Yes.
That's why they were mad about it.
Yes.
Okay. Good Lord.
And it's like it's very well done. Also, I will say that I mean, like all of it, but like that in particular, I think was handled in a very like good age appropriate way. So stay mad, people.
Yeah, exactly. Stay mad about it.
I love all the comments. We're getting some love for Batman Beyond, which I would like to see more of. I've watched it, but not super closely. More X-Men love. Yes, fantastic.
X-Men was actually the first superhero movie I ever watched. I don't know why, like I wasn't allowed a lot of, because we grew up really, really super Christian. I wasn't allowed a lot of superhero movies or movies in general, but like for some reason X-Men was okay. I don't know, but I got like the deluxe box set edition that was like, I still remember it really well. It was like silver foil on the front, and then it had like all of the outtakes and all of like the behind the scenes information, and I just like ate it up. I was like so obsessed with it. So that was my original superhero experience, was the X-Men.
So I like have a fond nostalgia for those movies. When they came out, they were like so cool, and I watched them having watched other newer superhero movies. I'm like, these are pretty corny.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
They for shows that are like really queer coded, they tried so hard to make it extremely heterosexual. But I think for when it came out, like definitely was. I still enjoy them in a lot of ways, the X-Men movies. Do you have any other thoughts, or do we want another question?
More question.
Okay. So I wanted to ask, what do you think it is? Because like obviously there has been a ton of superhero media. I feel like in my perception, like it's always been there. There's always been a lot of it, but especially in like around the era of the MCU, it just like exploded. But I wanted to ask, like, what do you think it is about superheroes that like really just captures the public like mind, the public imagination. Like why has this become such a huge
Ordinary
subgenre?
person discovers fun new trick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much.
I also think there's definitely an element of like the idea of a hero who can like defeat the villain. You know, it's like while I think modern superhero movies in particular have tried to do like more morally gray things, I think at the end of the day it still ends up being like the good guys defeating the bad guys, and that appeals to people. You know,
I think it also like you always get that really similar feeling scene, you know, like the lady's in the back alley and she gets her purse stolen or worse or whatever, and then the hero drops from the roof or wherever he's hidden and beats up the bad guy and gives the purse back and whatever. And it feels like that's like something we all wish was, you know, a thing that happened, like, oh, knowing there's like a hero in the shadows, if I get in trouble type of thing is like a really appealing idea to a lot of us.
It's also just as a genre so adaptable and like flexible to the times and all of that. Because like even now I don't feel like I'm burnt out on superhero things. I think they stopped making good ones because it became such a like let's make them as fast as we can cash grab thing. But it's done well. Like there's still so many different directions you can take a superhero story and so many different like types of worlds that they're in. Is it a secret? Is it not a secret? There's so many like inverted superheroes where they're all kind of assholes now as well. So like it's so varied, which is nice. Just no guarantee of quality.
Yeah, I think also I was before I started watching more superhero movies, I didn't necessarily categorize in my head them as fantasy, but they really are a part of the fantasy genre. But I think because a lot of them are set in our world and it has that more contemporary feel, for some people it's more accessible and familiar fantasy and sci-fi in some situations. So I think that can play into it too.
Maybe this is a debatable thing. I feel like superheroes are like solidly sci-fi.
Okay.
There's not real science, but they like to pretend there is science. Like I'm sure there are some where it's just like a magic-based system, but for the most part, like the X-Men are a genetic twist.
Thor's magic.
Yeah.
Yeah, fully.
It's interesting. There's like kind of like three categories of superheroes. Like there's like the science-based ones, like bit by a radioactive spider, did some experiments on yourself type thing. And then there's like the mythical being like Thor. And then there's like the rich person who just has really good technology.
I mean, then there's also just like Hawkeye and Scarlet Witch.
Yeah, so I guess
regular
like
people who are good at fighting.
Is really good at something or really rich or something like that. Yeah.
Or the one who secretly everyone else is like, why are they here? What are they bringing to the table?
Now I'm just imagining like a support group for superheroes like Alcohol Anonymous, and they're like, how did you get roped into this? Like, oh, I got bit by a spider. I'm a god. Had to.
Or you're just those people like they are extraordinary human beings, but as far as superheroes, so like it sucks to be measured on that scale. Like they're the best of the best until you've got Thor in the mix, and then.
And what do? You have a bow and arrow, like a job.
You're just really good with your bow and arrow.
Yeah.
But there's one of the movies where Hawkeye even makes a comment to that point where he's like, I'm fighting these guys with a bow and arrow. It doesn't make any sense.
Amazing.
Yeah. I think that's what I always really appreciate about the MCU over the DCEU, or like to a point, Marvel versus just DC in general. Of like Marvel doesn't need to take itself quite as seriously, and I feel like DC is not never, like obviously Batman comics all great, but like the movies really struggle to like find the line between like, oh, this is like gritty action and like fun.
It's like when you think about their like the DC's most successful probably superhero series has been the Dark Knight series, which was really dark and gritty.
Yes.
And so yeah, I think they trying to recapture that.
Yeah.
It's like you don't have Christopher Nolan. Can you really recapture it?
And like I love the original Wonder Woman movie. I liked the original Shazam movie, like the ones that were just more like heartwarming. And like they never really tried to be funny. It was just like nice and like heroes I wanted to root for more than Batman.
I had a thought and then it disappeared. I think a lot of like the MCU got so successful that I think, and this is something like I feel like we've talked about in other forms of media, and like it's happening in publishing, it's happening elsewhere in movies, it's happening in TV, where there's just kind of this like feeling like we're only going to make big blockbuster stuff, which is like a silly philosophy in a lot of ways. But I feel like this is something I've been thinking about with the MCU, is that like some of their movies, it's like they just keep trying to make them bigger in ways that don't make sense. So like I actually watched the second Tom Holland Spider-Man last night, the one where they're in Europe, and like I didn't dislike it. There were a lot of things I enjoyed about it, but I'm just like, why isn't he in New York? He's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and you took him out of the neighborhood to try and make like to expand the world in a way that's like, why we didn't
happen in New York
neighborhood. And similar with like the most recent Ant-Man movie, that was like fine for me. I didn't dislike it. I enjoyed watching it. But for me, like the appeal of Ant-Man was that he's small. So, like, and the fact that they in the first two movies, I think, do a really good job of like he's just a little guy in his little world, and it's the third movie was like, no, we're going big now, and I realized they're actually going small, but you know, like thematically, it felt like they were going big. I don't know. Do we have feelings about like? I feel like we've kind of touched on some feelings of like oversaturation or like I don't know. For you, like what do you feel like the timeline has been like for superheroes in the past 10, 15 years?
I just got real sick of it. It just felt like a lot of really big hyped movies came out pretty close together. And also they just keep remaking the same ones. I know a lot of people really like the Spider-Man, but I just like every time a new one comes out, I'm like, okay, but why? There's more. There's so many. Also, what are they making again? Fantastic Four or something? Nobody needs that. Nobody wants that. No?
No, we talked about that during the reboot and episode chat.
Yeah.
I think it was like the speed at which they were coming out and just like the sheer volume got to be too much. And I think what also got kind of frustrating with the MCU is that it became like everything was so like referential that it felt like if you missed one series or one movie, you would be lost in everything else. And there were some things like that you just might not be interested in, but I felt like I needed to watch every series that came out, every movie that came out, so that I like was caught up on what was happening, or else I wouldn't understand the next thing to come out.
Well, and I think with that, because that's very much how I felt too. I think it was like as soon as I did like fall behind on one thing, and like nothing bad happened to me, I was like, I guess I'm out now. I fell off the treadmill.
See, I feel like they maybe tried to fix that and went too far, because now like I miss the feeling of things being at least somewhat layered and touching, and like it does feel like they just have not planned as well as like they eventually did with the Infinity Saga of like how it's all going to come together. Because like now I know all the ones I missed didn't matter, but like just for these new ones, like I would have watched them if it felt like, oh, there's a chance someone like a character I love is going to show up, or I don't know, that the plot mattered at all. Like the Secret War was so secret that it didn't matter. Like it just, I like that like the MCU has a history to it, so I don't need everything to be like crossover and all of that, but I want it to feel like it's part of the same world, and I feel like they're going too far the other way now.
There's a happy medium, and we all know how good studios are at finding them. I feel like
they're so good though, and they lost it.
I know. Well, I feel like I'm just getting back to the point where I'm like, I feel like I could get invested in the MCU again. I feel like I have some bandwidth to
It's like thinking back to like the first phase of the MCU leading up to the first Avengers movie. Like it was so spread out. Like those movies were coming out over multiple years. You know, I think that
But it was
helped a
also
lot.
like
Had time to like get caught up on things and.
But they also like were doing so like far fewer heroes of like I loved the Shang-Chi movie, but we haven't seen him in years now. Like he's supposed to be one of those pillars that's building up the new thing, but his movie's not supposed to take place till after the next Avengers, and they haven't got there yet. So don't bother getting attached to him like you did with Robert Downey Jr. or any of them that got a couple movies close together.
Yeah. It was like the original Avengers movies. It was like they were able to take that time to like build up the characters, and also to the point of like things being connected. They were connected, but it was in a way that was kind of like fun because it would be like in an end cuts, like the end after credit scene, you would like find out how it was connected to like the next movie or the previous movie. Like it was like little things versus like, oh, well, I missed Thor. Now I'm not going to understand Captain America.
Or like Agent Coulson, who like, you don't need to know he's in another movie for him to make sense in this movie. But if you've watched the other movies, it's like, it's that guy.
Yeah, I remember I had a roommate who was really into superheroes and especially Marvel. And so we'd watch different shows or movies together that she had seen prior to me seeing, or she just knew like the lore before. And I'd be out to be like, wait, is this something I'm supposed to like pay attention to? Do I need to know this? And so like, I think it's interesting coming in not having read the comics. So I wonder if someone who has read the comics quite well, if they see those same issues or not.
Another thing that I think I don't even know fully how to phrase it, but like they tried to, as they're ramping up this new era of it, of like bringing in bigger, interesting directors and letting them take their own direction with it without any like overarching, like Sam Raimi does horror-y stuff and hadn't even seen WandaVision, and they just let him like go do whatever you want with Wanda, it'll be fine, and like no, and then you directly from that you jump to like the next Taika Waititi movie, which I think went too hard the silly direction because Ragnarok was so great. Like, so it's all like each director is just like trying to reset the path and tone of an entire franchise, and it's just getting a little lost in the weeds.
And that's another one where like I feel like there could be balance, because it's like in some ways it was refreshing to be like, okay, now I'm going to a scarier one, now I'm going to a sillier one, but
you have to know what the like plan is and how you fit into the larger puzzle, because I absolutely agree, like I like the different tones, but not if it just makes everything else.
What happens when you put these characters back in another movie together?
I think Doctor Strange 2 was where I started to just kind of be like, I don't know how, like, if I want to watch everything Marvel anymore, you know, like it was kind of my turning point and interest in the MCU. Because, Wanda in particular just felt so disjointed from what had come before.
Getting some more, sorry, looking at the chat real quick. Joe Catherine, I have watched the Justice League cartoon, and it's also a nostalgic favorite for me. My brother and I still sometimes will turn on an episode or two when we just want to watch something that's like nostalgic and silly.
I saw back when people were talking about Batman Beyond, and Griswold mentioned with all the Batman adaptations we've had in recent years, why haven't they tried to reboot Batman Beyond? And I recently saw, I want to say it was on like either Threads or Twitter, I don't remember which one, people talking about how much they really want Michael Keaton to star in a Batman Beyond adaptation, which I think would be really cool.
I liked Less Than 3D's comment of, I think it's fun to imagine having superpowers, especially when we're kids. And I think that was totally the magic of it for me, of like being able to go like, what if I'm an X-Men and I just like all of a sudden do a thing that somehow solves all my problems. So much fun.
Definitely. Well, and I feel like for me, especially with X-Men, the draw when I was a teen was like they went to like a cool superhero school. Like that's so badass. You're like, oh, what well, I would sit in class next to this person, and like maybe my superpower would be this. Like I just now I'm remembering that I wrote fan fiction like that. That was very self-insert. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a similar vibe to like witchcraft stories. Like, oh, I'd love to be a witch kind of thing, but like superheroes having the flexibility to not all have to be the same and follow the same rules.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Well, I think there's something like that I really enjoy is like, yeah, there's these big fight scenes, but it's almost like I really enjoy the creativity of like, well, how does having these abilities like affect the way they just like get ready in the morning? You know, like things like that. I'm looking at my list of things to talk about. Well, since this is kind of similarly related, if you had superpowers, which would you want?
It's such a hard question.
I know. Like any of them that would make my life yes.
I always want to say time freeze because then I could go just like steal stuff. But I also feel like my guilty conscience would prevent me from having any fun whatsoever with a time stop power. So
I don't know. Do you even need fun of like you could just like as long as I don't have to age while I'm time frozen and like I could just like pause and hobby whenever I want and then miss nothing. The world will not go on without me.
This is such a practical adult. Like, how do we use superpowers to give ourselves more hours in the day to get things done?
That's so true.
Because my brain went to like, well, super speed, because then I could get my chores done quicker and have more time to relax.
Right. Super speed is
adulthood ruins you.
Yeah, that's true. It's a lot less fun when you're like, well, I could make my lunch extra fast.
I'm trying to think of like what young me whenever like faced with this question because it always seemed to come up for some reason. I think I like back then I always went like mind reading, and now I know I would not want that.
No. I don't know. I want to know what people think of me.
I feel like in the scenario when I was younger, like it was always going to be some grown up asked you if you wanted mind reading, time travel, or flight, and those were the only available options.
I think I always said flight.
Yeah,
pretty much always said that.
I had this apartment in college where one of my roommates had started dating someone, and we decided for whatever reason we as an apartment were going to interview him to make sure he was okay. And he was a good sport for putting up with this, I guess. In our defense, some red flags were discovered and they broke up not very long after that. But one of the questions in this interview that we asked this guy is what superpower he would have if he could have a superpower. And his response is, quote, flying straight up. And my roommate goes, you only want to be able to fly straight up? And then he responds, not quite getting what she's saying. He goes, well, I'd also want to be able to come back down. So he could just up, down. Not side to side, no side to side. But,
much confusion was had.
Yeah. That wasn't like the red flag, but it wasn't like a green flag either.
Probably not a green flag. It'd be even worse if he, like me, was like, I want time stop power so I can rob banks and steal people's crap. Get out. All red flags.
I feel like
I'm with Leo on teleportation. I just want to be able to travel easily.
Teleport.
Yeah, go somewhere for the afternoon, not have to pay for a hotel.
Yeah, exactly. Visit friends whenever you want. Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
Again, really so practical. So practical.
Less practical than super speed so I can get my chores done. I just want to see my friends and the world.
True.
I mean, I feel like super speed could aid in that too.
This is true.
I didn't think I was actually that into super speed, but the more I think about the practical outcomes of it.
I think super speed and time stop are real similar because, like, same effect.
feel like with super speed, I would somehow find a way to injure myself.
Oh yeah.
Good point. You
Also,
just
like,
run into things at
Trip
6
over
times the
things.
speed.
similarly, aren't teleportation and super speed kind of similar?
To get you places faster, but you're less
Yeah.
likely to get injured.
But you can't
I
make your lunge
also-
extra fast.
Unless you teleported to the bread.
You
the
still
fridge.
gotta like
Yeah,
spread
yeah,
the mayo.
that-
It's-
Yeah.
Not quite. Yeah, not quite.
yeah, this would be a time saver, but not.
So like all of them are time savers. All of these, like that's all we're doing.
Yeah, pretty much.
On the less practical end, I was a big like Kitty Pryde fan growing up. I still like her, but like that was like in high school the one I was like, she's my favorite. So like walking through walls always seemed super cool to me. I don't know what I would do with that. But,
It's really just super speed in a direction. You don't have to go through a door anymore. It's just
yeah, yeah. I guess I would still get my chores done a little bit quicker that way.
If you could walk through walls.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like heroes with weirder powers. Like, is there anything I'm like, oh yeah, that'd be awesome.
Like Ant-Man.
The weirder, yeah.
Do you want to be able
Yeah.
to turn into an ant?
I'm not sure what would that help with? Not making your lunch. That would make it so much harder.
Or would you have to eat less because you're ant-sized?
Oh.
I don't want to stay
Yeah.
ant-sized.
Yeah. If you eat in ant form and then get big again, are you like, oh my God, I'm so hungry?
You make one sandwich, you make it big, you cut it up, you've meal prepped for the week.
As long as you stay small for the week, though.
No, you make the sandwich bigger.
It could help with not with faster travel, but with cheaper travel because you could like sneak in someone's suitcase.
Yeah.
True. That.
Okay, can anyone think of a superpower that we cannot make practical?
I don't think travel is
I will
practical.
find a way to make it practical. but-
Travel is leisure.
There was that Sky High movie where the girl turns into a guinea pig, which is not super great. Kind of a lame power. That was a good movie.
Yeah, it was.
Classic movie. Oh,
Yeah,
there's
I
also
like the plant girl in that one. That would be a cool one.
Mhm.
does she turn into a plant? Oh no,
she grows plants. Yeah.
Okay, I was like, that's a real lame power. I can be a human or I can be a snake plant. That's the power. That's it. Cool. There's a guy who turns into Jello or something in Sky High, isn't there?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like a blob.
Oh yeah.
But
he
hey, if you
melts.
can turn into a snake plant, like you could be a plant in an office, like like
Right,
plant
you could
yourself there.
spy
And-
on
yeah.
people. Oh, that is pretty good.
I want a superpower. I have no interest in being a superhero.
True. I would be
Oh.
using it for selfish gains.
Ooh, and Griswold, that's a good point about being able to imagine and be able to do anything that you imagine. I'm trying to think of what superhero kind of has that. Is that kind of no? It's been forever since I've seen. Oh, I think I just saw commercials for it. What's the one with like the scarab or the beetle?
Oh, Blue Beetle.
Does that have that or no?
Not exactly.
Okay, I think I just saw the commercial and
Yeah.
thought that was what it was.
Oh, that's a cool one. I had a concept once for a character who like had a superpower, and the superpower was that they woke up every day with a new superpower.
Oh.
So you never knew what you were getting. It's like, well, today it's super speed, and today it's turning into a guinea pig.
The only
Right? I
part of
wouldn't
that-
necessarily want that, but I think it would be
Yeah.
incredibly good media to consume.
It would be, but also that would be terrible to have because they always have the classic like learning how to use your power montage
Yes.
thing. So that would be every morning for you. You're trying to get your
I
Cheerios
feel like that
and
would
adjust
be
to
like
the
a
super speed.
good. That would be the sitcom, like
Yeah,
just like what are we dealing with this episode?
yeah.
I saw on
Definitely.
TikTok the other day. I don't remember what the context was. I think it was like wishes or something, but the person wanted to like, or just like you had the power that everything you wished came true, like trying to get around the wish loophole thing. And so their friend was like, but okay, but like that one time, have you ever like wished you were dead? And the friend was like, no. And they're like, oh, just two very different kinds of people.
Oh my god.
There is an X-Men who their power is luck. That's kind of a cool one.
That is cool.
I've been playing. Oh, sorry. I've been playing with some friends. This game that is it's like Dungeons and Dragons, but it's superheroes. And my character in that one can control glass, like break it, put it back together, rearrange it. It's been really fun to play. Like that's a fun creative one. I'm like always thinking like, ooh, I could do this with it.
It's cool.
And I'm sure if I actually had that ability, I would find a way to make it practical, but it's not inherently.
I'm just thinking about, is it Domino that's the luck one? Is that her name? So she's in the Deadpool movies, and there are many, many rumors about Taylor Swift being in the next Deadpool movie, because like she's been out with the director. She's obviously very good friends with Ryan Reynolds and has a secret wish in her heart to be a movie star. So I just think it'd be so fantastic and make my life. I'd get way back into the MCU if that.
Yeah.
There's rumors she's gonna be Domino.
No.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say. Gotcha. Okay.
One who like uses singing to do things. I think is like.
Of course.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure she'd like die off immediately, not be like a character, just like a cameo.
Yeah.
Thing, but it'd be fun.
Yeah. I really like Deadpool. Just for the sheer snarkiness, and I would definitely go see it like extra hard if Taylor Swift was in it, for sure.
I mean, really, if Marvel wants to make a sure hit, they should put Taylor Swift in their movie.
It's really a question of, does Taylor want to be a superhero?
Stop putting her exes in the movie and start putting her in the movie.
I'm like, but if anyone could convince her to do it, I think Ryan Reynolds would be that person.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah.
I feel like there's a legitimate, this could be a thing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me. We've got less than 3D telekinesis. That would be a good one. That'd be
very one.
Yes, very practical. Also, if I were to use it for like superhero reasons, I like the one where it's like, no, stay away from me. I'm gonna throw things at you from a distance. Personally, which is why I won't ever be a superhero.
I feel like
that and other reasons.
I feel like time travel would be interesting, like for a short period of time. Like go see some other go see like the future, see some times in the past, and then I would like just get tired of it after a while. Could use it for like some book research or something, but
yeah, I just feel like the risk of like random rolling trauma and getting into a bad situation in the future or the past is just. And yeah, Edward Griswold, I think it's Dazzler that she is rumored to be.
We've talked characters, we've talked specific media. Do we have favorite tropes or character types? Because it is such a tropey. I mean, all genres are tropey. Superheroes like feel super like and I think when we were talking about it before, things we like draw us to the genre, I think sometimes like, again, there's this fine line between like it all feeling too similar and wanting to like explore other facets of the genre, but also like, I think sometimes the appeal is that it is like very tropey and predictable. And I think that makes it a lot of times, for me at least, very comfort, is that I'm like, I go in, I'm like, I sit down, I know the formula.
Mm-hmm. You know? Isn't there like statistics about superhero movies doing better during like stressful times in history or something? I feel like I've heard something about that before. I could be totally making this up.
Slightly related to that. I think I've heard the comment before of if you look at what country or like nationality the villain is, it usually lines up with like who the US is having a contentious relationship with.
Feuding with.
Yes.
There's definitely a lot of like current issues that get reflected in superhero stories.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting because I feel like a lot of times they have like these very conservative type of elements, like who the bad guys are, but in other ways, like it has been a genre that has been, I don't know. Maybe it depends on the arena, because like comic books have actually always been a genre that have not been unproblematic, certainly, but as a whole, I would consider fairly progressive for the era. So like it was a genre that I think, was more again, there are lots of racially problematic things in comics, but I think it was like maybe ahead of the curve in terms of where a lot of the other media was.
I think they made, I'm only really thinking of Marvel here. I think they made real effort to try and be that. Not always successfully, but trying counts for something.
And similar with like queer characters being, I think, more present, but also just like a lot of superhero media is very queer coded. But
when you were talking about tropes, I immediately went to The Incredibles, where Syndrome is like, "You got me monologuing, you sly dog."
Yes.
Which I know the monologue is not specific to superheroes, but I know it's definitely a large piece of a lot of stories.
Tell me your plan, Mr. Villain. I think for me, one of the ones I always think about is like, it's like, why is this even I mean, I kind of get why it's a trope, but the bus going off a bridge. So it's so prevalent. It's in so many of them. And I get that it's like kind of a convenient way to be like, the public's in danger, but surely there are other ways the public can be in danger. We really lean on that bus.
Person.
Yeah.
But you can still do it in one movement, so it's good.
There's also, I feel like, a lot of subway trains that get in trouble.
Oh yeah,
you're going through tunnels and stuff.
Public infrastructure is always a casualty.
Yeah, I would not be taking any public transport in places that have superheroes, because they're always gonna get in trouble.
I do really like that so much media has moved away from like secret superheroes into what would the world be like if we just knew there were superheroes. I like the MCU getting into Kamala Khan just being a fangirl before she's a superhero, and like how society evolves from that big like, oh, aliens are attacking Earth. That's a thing now.
Cool.
Yeah, I had to look it up, and I did find this article that I will send to everyone, but it's like, it mentions that superheroes have been particularly popular during like World War II, the Cold War, and the Civil Rights Movement. So yeah, there does seem to be a correlation between like times of conflict in the US and when
makes sense.
That's very interesting.
If only this decline in superhero content reflected a decline in
I feel like that's like the same way that it's like vampires keep becoming popular when there's an economic collapse. Interesting. We are getting kind of close-ish to the hour, so I think I want to end with like, we've talked a lot about like where the genre has been over the past little bit. Where do we think the genre is going? Like, if you had to put on your prediction goggles.
Kyra, I'm gonna lob the question back at you because I feel like you know the most about. I don't know enough about it to be able to predict anything.
I mean, I asked this question. I don't know that I have an answer.
I think hasn't Marvel recently announced that they're going to slow down some? Yeah.
Yeah, I just was seeing like, it kind of sounds like Eternals 2 and the third Marvel's movie are maybe not permanently canceled, but not being actively worked on anymore.
Mm.
So maybe the better question is, where do you hope they're going?
Yeah.
Mm.
One thing I will say is that like for seeing this kind of like slowdown, that like yes, there was a saturation point. It makes sense to me. The one thing that I do always regret with that is that it feels like the slowdown really coincided with like when we started opening up to more diverse stories. Right. So like, because
they waited until it was oversaturated to start introducing.
Oh no, it's an absolute glass cliff, right?
Yeah.
Like they're like, well, now that we've saturated with 37 white men, we are going to
finally do some movies about women and people of color.
Yeah. So and some of them have like, I think a lot of my favorite ones have been because they're not about, you know, the white male characters.
Yeah.
Like I loved Miss Marvel, and she is a character that I really love, but like I think that was just very, very well done. Like I think it was a good show. Black Panther, like Leah mentioned, is like, and that one came like a little bit earlier on before I think a lot of the fatigue had set in, but
I think that was probably the one that made the money people go, oh, this can be profitable. I guess we can do diversity.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, that's like the biggest thing is that like, yeah, I do think there needs to be an adjustment. What I guess what I hope happens is, and again, if you've been around this channel, you know that I love to rail on the like blockbuster mentality lately. But just like I want the genre to be less blockbuster focused, especially in the movies. This is less of a problem because I do also read comics and I watch shows, and it's less of an issue there. But I want less like we're gonna do the next blockbuster and more just like just let Spider-Man be the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Just let Ant-Man be small. And also make characters about people who aren't white men. But like, yeah, less trying to just constantly one up the level of intensity of the previous movie. Which is, don't do that. Like Endgame was very, very intense. Not ever, we don't need to keep going up from there. So yeah, so slowing down a little, but just like getting back to like, what is it about these characters that appeals to people?
Yeah,
and
that's what, like that's what I was saying with Endgame. Of like, it was that intense because we had the time to care about the characters individually and in smaller situations. Like, if it's all that big, nothing's that big.
Yeah, and I don't want everything to be that big. Like, that was fun once a decade, and then like the rest of the time, like I really love small stories, you know.
Yeah. I love the idea of the MCU playing with the multiverse more. Like, I thought it was so, like when you have that moment in Spider-Man, we're like, oh, all the Spider-Man, they've made everything canon, and so I don't have to wrap my head around quite as much. I loved and like getting to see different actors play beloved characters, but still have it kind of work into the world. I really like, so they have more flexibility to do those smaller stories in interesting ways. Just see if they will.
I'd also love to see the TV shows. Like, I love the long form, like Smallville, and not just Smallville. Like, I really enjoyed the first bit of The Flash. I watched quite a bit of Arrow. I watched Supergirl. Like, that's a fun medium to consume superhero content in, because you get a good balance of the like fighting, but also like the very mundane aspects of their life. And it is a slow build.
Like quite as long form as Smallville. Like
no, like but like 3-4 seasons is like, but like longer, slower seasons, but not 8 to 10 of them. Yeah, and I feel like TV is dying, and I would like that back also. Other thoughts, hopes, wishes for the future of the genre?
Yeah, I just hope they, less about blockbusters and pumping it out like so fast, and more about like returning to better quality, and like invest in some good screenwriting, please, for the love of God. Like we're there to see superheroes, sure, but like I like a good plot. Like, I like it to make sense. I like the writing to be good. And like a lot of the time it doesn't seem like that's a priority for people. For the people that make it, not for the people that watch it.
I want to see more balance and tone across like the spectrum of like what's being created. Of like, okay, we've got The Boys being super gritty, and like let's still have some stuff that's like really fun and lighthearted, and some stuff that explores just different. It doesn't all have to be whatever's making the most money right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. See, I think a part of that is like not everything. Like, I would love to see them realize that not everything has to appeal to everybody. Like, because that kind of feels like what they were trying to do. And some of the like not great superhero movies that have come out in the last couple of years, it feels like they were just like trying to like, let's do a formulaic thing that will appeal to the masses, and then like no one liked it, you know, versus like not everybody's going to be in something with more into something with more of a horror tone, or not everybody's going to be into like WandaVision was too weird for some people, you know, or like Miss Marvel like does have more of that like teen YA feel, and that's okay. Like, it's not going to appeal to like every adult who wants a serious movie or serious show, and that's fine. Like, it doesn't mean it's a failure of a show.
And smaller budgets, because even something like, people talk about the Marvels as being like a huge flop, and it's like, it wasn't as successful as a lot of the previous Marvel movies. It still made quite a bit of money, and if it hadn't cost so much to make, then it would have been a perfectly decent turnaround for them.
Mm-hmm.
It just wasn't a blockbuster because, I don't know. I'm on my soapbox again, but the thing about blockbusters is not everything is going to be a blockbuster, and you can't make everything be a blockbuster.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, we are like right at the hour, so does anyone have any parting thoughts about the genre? Thanks for putting up with me. I like obviously could talk about this forever, so thanks for coming along on this little journey. Thanks. This was like a fun, like very chatty group tonight, so thanks for all the comments. And next week is a Nerd In, I believe, so we will see you
back
soon
after that with our first quarterly wrap-up live chat. So thanks.
As they say, same bat time, same bat channel. We'll see you next week, and thanks for joining us tonight. See you later.
Bye.